All right, today what we're going to do is we're going to disassemble a talking action long train. They all basically the same. The shells are a little different on the outside, but most of the guts are on the long trains are all the same. But the first one I want to do is to spend the time to just generally disassemble the tender. So we're going to get right to it. Get your number P1.1 type Phillips screwdriver and let's get at it. So remember, you got to have your magnetic tray right there ready to accept any parts that you take apart. And the first thing we got to remove is we got to remove this retention screw that is holding the battery cover on. It's at the bottom of the train, so we remove that. And they are sometimes really fun to take off. There we go. All right, so now most of them have a little tiny plastic right there, a little tiny piece of plastic right there to hold that screw in so it doesn't fall out when you remove it. It retains that screw. So go ahead and put that over there. All right, and you saw it fall apart, but there's generally there's a little latch, a little catch right there where you have to squeeze right there to remove the cover. Take that cover right off, and there is where this screw screws into, right there. All right, put the cover over there. Now here is your bottom. This is a 1.5 volt battery. This is your bottom battery right here. All right, and then your top tray has two batteries that sit next to each other, and your off and on switch right here. All right, so you see these two little holes right here. Some of the trains, the retaining screws for the tray is in the bottom, some are on the top, but this one, there's no screws there, so the retaining screws are on the top. But before we remove those screws, let's look at this little switch back here, this three-way switch right here. And we need to remove that screw first. Now, that is a flat top screw. And the reason why it has to be flat topped is because it has to sit right underneath here. Okay, and you don't want a dome screw right there to cause a pressure point, so you need a flat one. And there's only two of these screws on the whole train, here and back in underneath in the actuator arm and the cover back there. So be very careful when you remove these. Don't lose them. All right, don't lose them. So let's take that off. A little tiny screw. All right. Now take that and immediately put it over there. Put it in your tray. So everything's landing in the tray. I know this is covering it, but everything's landing in the tray. Now we got to remove these two retaining screws. All right, let's see if we can get them out. Sometimes everything's easier when you're not trying to film it at the same time. All right, still got one disconnected, this bottom one. All right, there we go. That's both of them. Let's put both of them away so I don't lose. All right, now the tray is free. The tray is free. Now you can get in and look at some of the components that are here. There's nothing really amazing underneath here. All right, all you got is, this is your bottom right here. That's a little stand for the switch. I'm going to put that right there for now. But what you got in here is you got your positive, your negative and your positive battery terminals are right here. There's your negative, as you were. That is your positive, and there's your negative side right there. And then over here is your positive and negative terminals for the tray for the batteries right there, and the connecting wires that connect to the switch. All right. Now you need to make sure you retain these pieces of plastic here. All right. Excuse me, tape, to prevent from this to touching these. Okay. You don't want that to happen. If you'll get a short in there, and you'll blow this little fuse that's right here. I did a video on the off and on switch for the Thomas Talking Action, and there's that little switch, little fuse right there. Right there is that little fuse. All right, this one still functions, so we're going to put that back. All right, now over here in the back is the three-way switch, your off and on switch. Okay, here's a little stand. Your coupler, you can take your coupler off just like that. There's a little stud right there. Put that back on like that. All right, this little stand, see that little peg right there? That goes behind these two, okay? And that little peg right there at the bottom slides on top of the, and that hole right there, if you can see that little hole, it slides back in there to hold that on. Now, got to keep my big fingers out of the way. Now, let's see if I can focus in quick on this here. Wrong way. All right, so right there is a stud sitting at the top. Let me back away a little bit. Right here is a little stud. See that little stud? All right, there's a hole in this, in the switch. You got to put it on there like that. Put it in there. And back out. Okay, so you can see what I'm doing. All right, fits back in there just like that. Okay, all the wires are back underneath. All right, so now we got to return, just put it back together the way you took it apart. Take your screw. These things were little tiny. Okay, trying to get that screw in there and let you see it at the same time. Sometimes that gravity's working against you. Now, never over tight. Okay, these little toys are made out of plastic, and that plastic is cheap plastic when they made it, and they are going on 20 years old, and so they'll break in a minute. So never over tight any of these screws. Just make them snug. Just make them snug and it'll be just fine. Okay, so that, and then we got this last little tiny screw. All right, we got to place it back where it goes on the back side of the switch over here. Hold that down. Okay, now the one other part I didn't talk about is this screw right here. That little screw in the back and this one are the only ones that are different than everybody else. This got a big old head on it. All right, big old head. It's a big screw. Okay. All right, and then it has the coupler latch right there that you can take the couplers off and on with right here. Okay, go ahead and put it back down. Don't need to take it completely off. Big fingers. Then put this back on, come back through the bottom, put it back onto there. All right, that's disassemble of the tender for a Henry.